My daughter announced, "Mom, your credit card is coming with us to Paris for our anniversary." I smiled and said nothing. That afternoon, I made one phone call. The next morning, she called me screaming from the airport. The card was declined. Then I said something that made her go completely silent. "Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching, get comfortable and relax, let's begin." The teacup was warm in my hands, the last of the afternoon sun making the leaves of my philodendron glow. That piece was the first thing to die. The back door slammed, a sound too forceful for the gentle latch. Then came the quick, heavy footsteps through the kitchen, the familiar rhythm of purpose, not of greeting. Chloe appeared in the sunroom doorway, breathless, her cheeks flushed. Marcus trailed behind her, offering me a tight, habitual smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mom, you are not going to believe this," Chloe announced, her voice filling the quiet space. She didn't ask if she was interrupting. She never did. I set my cup down on the saucer. It made a soft, precise sound. "Believe what, dear?" She swept into the room, perching on the edge of the wicker chair opposite me, leaning forward as if to share a secret. Marcus remained standing, a sentinel by the bookshelf, his hands in his pockets. He examined a framed photograph of Chloe's graduation. "We've decided," Chloe said, her eyes wide with a triumph she was eager to dispense. "It's our 5th anniversary next month. 5 years, that's the wood anniversary, but who wants wood?" She laughed, a bright, brittle sound. "So we're doing it right. We're going to Paris." I felt my smile settle on my face, the one I used for library patrons who were being unreasonable but must be handled with courtesy. "Paris! How lovely for you both." "Isn't it?" She clasped her hands together. "A full week. We found this perfect little boutique hotel in Saint-Germain. I've already booked dinners at 2 places I saw on that travel show. And the shopping, Mom, the shopping." I nodded slowly. I waited for the question. The request to water their plants to feed the cat. The part where she would ask, as an afterthought, if I thought it was a good idea. Instead, she beamed at Marcus, then back at me, and delivered the line as if it were a gift she was presenting. "So, we're going to Paris for our anniversary with your credit card. We'll bring you back the best perfume from the Champs-Élysées, I promise." The silence that followed was not empty. It was dense, packed with the echoes of every other time. The wedding dress that cost 3 times her original budget. The loan for the down payment on the sports car that was never mentioned again. The emergency vet bill for the purebred dog she insisted on getting. The words hung in the air between us, not a question, but a statement of fact. A foregone conclusion. I looked at my daughter. I saw the vibrant young woman, the successful marketing director, the beautiful wife. And in that moment, I also saw the little girl who used to hand me scribbled drawings, expecting them to be taped to the refrigerator with ceremony. The transaction had always been there, I realized. Her offering my approval. Only the currency had changed. My hands did not move from my lap. My voice, when I found it, was calm, measured. The librarian's voice. "My credit card." "The platinum one," she clarified, as if I might be confused. "It has the best travel miles. We'll get points for the flights, too. It's practically making money." Marcus cleared his throat softly, finally speaking. "It's a really great deal we put together, Aliner. Very cost-effective." He said it to the bookshelf. I turned my head and looked out at my garden. The lavender was blooming. I had spent the morning weeding, my hands in the dark soil, the sun on my back. It had been a good morning. "Well," I said, drawing the word out, "that is quite a plan." Chloe took this as the assent it was not. She bounced up from the chair. "I knew you'd be excited. We have to go pack, and I need to buy a new suitcase. Mine is so last season." She came over, bent, and planted a dry kiss on my cheek. The scent of her expensive perfume, a previous gift, washed over me. "Thank you, Mom, you're the best." She was already moving back toward the kitchen, talking to Marcus about exchange rates. He gave me another nod, a vague gesture of thanks, and followed her. I did not get up. I listened to the sounds of their departure. The chatter, the second slam of the door, the growl of Marcus's expensive car engine. Then silence returned, deeper now, stained by what had just happened. The sun had moved. My teacup was cold. I looked at the empty doorway where she had stood, so full of her own certainty. For years, I had told myself that my generosity was a bridge, that the money was just a tool to smooth her path, to give her the confidence I had to forge for myself. I saw now that I had not built a bridge. I had dug a moat, and I was on one side alone, and she was on the other, shouting demands across a gap she no longer even saw. A deep, cold clarity settled in my chest. It was not anger, not yet. It was the quiet after a diagnosis, when the worrying is over and the facts are simply there, waiting to be addressed. My phone was on the side table. I looked at it, a sleek, dark rectangle, a tool for connection, for emergencies, for approving digital transactions with a single touch. I did not reach for it then. I sat very still as the room grew darker, letting the truth of it all settle into my bones. The announcement, the statement, the casual annexation of my resources, my labor, my quiet life. The feeling that rose was not hurt. It was something older, more solid. It was the recognition of a final line, drawn not in sand, but in stone. And I saw with absolute precision that I was the only one who could see it. I finally picked up the cold teacup and saucer. The china was delicate, inherited from my own mother, who worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. I carried it to the kitchen, washed it carefully in warm water, and placed it back in the cupboard. Each movement was deliberate. Then I walked to my study, to the small, polished desk that held my checkbook, my files, the orderly records of a life built on deliberation. I did not open anything. I simply sat in the chair, my hands resting on the cool wood, and stared at the wall where a photograph of a young Chloe smiled, forever 8 years old, unaware of the woman she would become, or the woman I would need to become in response. The decision did not feel like a thunderclap. It felt like a key turning in a lock I had left open for far too long. A simple, mechanical motion. The only question that remained was when I would choose to turn it. The photograph of the 8-year-old Chloe offered no answers, only a fixed, innocent expectation. I turned the chair away from it. The desk drawer slid open with a familiar sound. Inside were not just current bills, but the archived files I kept for tax purposes, a history of my financial life in neat, labeled folders. I did not reach for them immediately. First, I opened the central drawer and took out my personal ledger. It was a simple, leather-bound book, the columns filled with my precise handwriting. Salary from the library, mortgage payments, utilities, savings, transfers. And then a different column, one without a clear label. Over the years, I had simply written C at the top. My finger traced down the entries for the past year. C, car insurance, $1,200. C, emergency dental, $850. C, loan for Michelin dinner, $500. Each entry was a withdrawal not just from my account, but from a deeper reservoir. I turned the pages back further. 5 years ago, the entries grew larger, more frequent. The wedding. I opened the corresponding file folder. Invoices, contracts, checks I had written. The venue alone was a number that still had the power to tighten my stomach. Chloe had cried when she saw it, hugging me, saying, "Mom, it's perfect. Thank you for making my dream come true." The memory was vivid, but its texture had changed. The warmth of the hug was now inseparable from the cold fact of the invoice. I closed the ledger. The file folders beckoned, a chronological monument to my capitulation. I did not need to open the one labeled vehicle. I remembered the conversation perfectly. Chloe's old car was unreliable. Marcus had mentioned a colleague's new convertible. Chloe's voice, wheedling and excited on the phone. "It's an investment, Mom. It's so much safer. And it's just a little help with the down payment. We'll handle the rest." The little help was $15,000. The rest they handled was a series of late payment calls that eventually came to me. The silence of the house was no longer peaceful. It was accusatory. It echoed with all the times I had said yes. Yes to the private school tutor. Yes to the semester abroad. Yes to the rent on her first apartment when her job didn't cover it. Each yes had felt like love, like support, like the safety net my own mother could never provide. I saw now that I had not been weaving a net. I had been laying down a road of polished marble for her to walk upon, without ever teaching her how to pave her own path. A specific memory surfaced, unbidden. Chloe was 14. She wanted a $200 pair of jeans. I said no, explaining that was a grocery budget for 2 weeks. She slammed her bedroom door. An hour later, I went in. She was listening to music, drawing. I sat on her bed and said we could go look for a more affordable option. She shrugged, not looking at me. Forget it, it's fine. But the next week, I bought the jeans. I left them on her bed. She wore them, but never thanked me. The victory was mine, I'd thought then. I had proven my love. Now I saw the defeat. I had taught her that silence and sulking were a currency I would accept. The weight of these thoughts was physical. I needed a voice that was not the accusing echo in the room or the cheerful ghost of my daughter's entitlement. I picked up my phone and called Rose. She answered on the third ring. "Eleanor, I was just thinking about you. How's the garden?" Her voice was an immediate anchor. "The lavender is thriving," I said. "The aphids are trying their luck on the roses." "A constant battle," she said. I could hear the soft clink of dishes in the background. She was likely cleaning up after dinner. "But you sound like you're battling more than aphids." I did not know how to begin. The words felt dramatic, childish. "My daughter is using me." "Chloe and Marcus came by today," I started. "On a Tuesday, that's a surprise. Usually it's a scheduled event." Rose never pretended not to see the patterns. "They announced they're going to Paris for their anniversary." "Lovely. Are you cat-sitting?" "No," I took a breath. "They announced they are going to Paris with my credit card." The line was silent for a full 5 seconds. Then Rose let out a long, slow exhale. She said it like that, as a statement. A statement, a celebration. She promised to bring me back perfume. Rose made a sound, a soft asterisk tusk of understanding, not just of the event but of the lifetime that led to it. "Eleanor, tell me you're not considering it." "I am considering," I said, my voice low. "The entire account, the ledger. I have been reviewing it." "The financial one, or the emotional one?" "They are the same ledger." "Ah," another pause. I heard her pull out a chair and sit. "And what is the balance?" The question was so simple, so direct. It cut through the fog of memory and hurt. "I am deeply in deficit," I said, the words clear and cold. "She is in surplus but does not know it. She thinks the surplus is hers to spend indefinitely." "What does she give you?" Rose asked. It was not a cruel question. It was an accounting one. I thought the phone calls that were mainly updates on her life, requests disguised as anecdotes. The visits that felt like royal inspections. The perfunctory thank you notes for gifts. The perfume she would bring back from Paris, a token purchased with the same resource it was meant to thank. "Obligation," I finally said. "She gives me a sense of being needed, but it is not a need for me. It is a need for my function." "A bank has a function," Rose said. "A mother is not a bank." There it was, the truth, spoken aloud in my quiet study. It did not feel like a revelation, but like a confirmation of something I had known in my bones for years. "I am tired, Rose." "I know you are. You've been carrying a double load for decades, your own life and the curated version of hers." Her voice softened, but lost none of its precision. "So, what are you going to do about it?" I looked at the closed ledger. I looked at the stack of file folders. I saw the photograph of the little girl from the corner of my eye. The path before me bifurcated. One direction was well-worn, familiar. It involved a sigh, a resigned shake of the head, and the eventual phone call to ask for the flight dates to ensure the card wouldn't flag the foreign transaction. It ended with me alone, waiting for a bottle of perfume that would smell like guilt and resentment. The other direction was a narrow, overgrown trail. It was not paved. I could not see where it led. "I am going to balance the books," I heard myself say. The words came out steady. "How?" "I haven't decided on the method," I said. "Only the principle. The withdrawal of respect requires a corresponding withdrawal of privilege." Rose was silent again. Then she said, "Good, it's time. Call me if you need to talk before you act or after." We said our goodbyes. I placed the phone back on the desk. The cold clarity that had begun in the sunroom now filled me completely. It was not rage. It was the focused intent of a surgeon assessing a necessary operation. The patient was our relationship. The disease was entitlement. The treatment would be austerity. I closed the desk drawer, locking away the ledger of the past. The next entry would not be another C. It would be an E for Aliner. The decision, once named, became a quiet companion. It did not shout or demand immediate action. It simply sat with me, a solid, undeniable fact, like a stone I had picked up and now carried in my pocket. I would feel its weight at odd moments, and the reality of what I planned to do would click into place again. The next morning, I rose at my usual time. The sky was pale gray. I made coffee, the ritual of grinding beans and waiting for the pot to brew a familiar comfort. I took my mug to the sunroom, the scene of the crime, and looked out at the garden. The lavender needed deadheading. I noted the task. I dressed in old denim and a worn shirt. I gathered my gardening tools, the shears, the kneeling pad, the woven basket for clippings. The air was cool and carried the scent of damp earth. I began with the lavender, snipping off the spent flower stalks. The work was methodical. Each cut was clean. The aromatic oil from the stems coated my fingers. I did not think of Paris. I thought of the plant's need for pruning to encourage new growth. A thing left untended becomes woody, unproductive. After an hour, my basket was full of gray-purple spikes. My hands were dirty, my knees slightly stiff. I felt a deep physical satisfaction. This was my work. These were my results. No one could take credit for this bloom but me, and no one could spend it. I cleaned my tools at the outdoor faucet, drying each blade carefully before putting them away. The routine of care was a language I understood. That afternoon was my book club. We were reading a historical novel about a woman who inherits a failing farm. The discussion, held in Miriam's comfortable living room, turned to the protagonist's difficult choices. "She's so harsh," Brenda said, stirring her tea. "Sending her own cousin away like that." "But the cousin was draining resources," Helen countered. "Emotional and financial. The farm couldn't support a non-contributor. It was a matter of survival." Miriam looked at me. "Aliner, you've been quiet. What do you think? Was she right to set that boundary?" I held my teacup steady. The parallel was so obvious it felt like a test. "I think," I said, measuring my words, "the book makes it clear the cousin was given many chances. The protagonist kept records. She knew exactly what was being taken. The final act wasn't harshness. It was accuracy." A small silence followed. Helen nodded slowly. "Accuracy, I like that. It's not an emotion, it's a fact." "Exactly," I said. The conversation moved on. I drank my tea. The stone in my pocket felt heavier, more defined. I returned home as the evening light was fading. The house was silent, waiting. I made a simple dinner for myself. I ate at the kitchen table, reading a magazine article about coastal erosion. The image of steady, patient water reshaping a shoreline stayed with me. After washing my plate, I went to my study. I did not turn on the main light, only the brass lamp on my desk. It cast a warm, focused pool on the polished wood. I opened the top drawer. I took out the small, plastic card carrier that held the few credit cards I used. The platinum card was a distinct color, a pale matte gray. It felt different from the others, cooler, heavier in a psychological sense. I placed it on the desk in the circle of light. I looked at my phone. There was no more deliberation. The pruning was done. The accounts were clear. The principle was established. All that remained was the execution. I picked up the phone. I navigated to my contacts and found the number for the bank, listed under financial services. It was a number I had called before, for mundane things. Credit limit increases at Chloe's request, questions about points. The line rang twice before a polite, automated voice answered, guiding me through a menu. I pressed numbers, my movements deliberate. I entered my account number using the keypad. I navigated the prompts for card services. The hold music was a generic instrumental piece. I waited. I looked at the card on the desk. I did not think of Chloe's face at the airport. I thought of my own face in the sunroom window, reflected behind her triumphant expression. I thought of the cold teacup. "Thank you for holding. This is Michael. How can I assist you today?" The man's voice was young, professional, slightly tired. "My name is Aliner Vance. I would like to cancel a credit card. Account number ending in 4472. I can help you with that, Ms. Vance. For security, can I please have your full name and the last 4 digits of your social security number? I provided them. My voice was calm, flat, the same voice I used to give a patron their due date. Thank you, I see the account. The platinum card. Is there a specific reason for the cancellation today? We could possibly address any concerns you might have. No concerns, I said. I no longer require the card. Please cancel it effective immediately. Certainly, I'll process that now. Please be aware that any recurring charges set up on this card will be declined. You will remain responsible for the current balance, which I show as 0. Could you confirm the mailing address for the final statement? I confirmed my address. The cancellation is processed. The card is now inactive. It will no longer authorize any transactions. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, I said. That is all, thank you. You're welcome. Have a good evening. The line went dead. The transaction was complete. The entire conversation had taken less than 4 minutes. I placed the phone down on the desk. I picked up the platinum card. I held it between my fingers for a moment, then I picked up the shears from my gardening basket, which I had left by the door. I sat back down. With a single firm snip, I cut the card in half. The plastic gave way with a crisp, final sound. I cut the 2 halves again, making quarters. I gathered the pieces and dropped them into the small metal wastebasket by my desk. They made a faint, hollow sound as they hit the bottom. I expected a flood of guilt, a last-minute panic. I felt nothing of the sort. Instead, a profound silence descended, not the accusatory silence of the previous night, but a deep, clean quiet. It was the silence of a door closed, a balance settled, a space cleared. I turned off the desk lamp and sat in the growing dark. The stone was gone from my pocket. In its place was a simple, unburdened emptiness. It felt like peace. It felt like the beginning of something, though I could not yet see its shape. For the first time in many years, the next move was not mine to make. I had set the boundary. The world and my daughter would have to adjust to it. The quiet after the call was not a vacuum. It was a space I now inhabited with full awareness. Life did not stop. It continued with its mundane rhythms, and I moved with it, my secret knowledge a lens that changed the color of everything. 2 days after I canceled the card, my phone rang. Chloe's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. Mom, hi. Her voice was a burst of energy. I'm at the boutique. I found the asterisk perfect travel outfit. It's linen, very chic, you'd approve. Linen wrinkles, I said, my tone neutral. That's the look, casual elegance. Anyway, I was thinking. For our first night, Marcus booked us at this tiny bistro. The menu is all in French, of course. He's going to have to order for me. She laughed. I could hear store music in the background. I'm sure you'll manage, I said. Oh, we will. And I looked up that perfume house you like, the one with the violet scent. I'll go to the flagship store. My itinerary is packed. She spoke for several minutes, detailing restaurants, museums, a boat cruise on the Seine. It was a monologue of consumption. I made occasional sounds of acknowledgement. I see. That sounds extensive. She did not ask what I was doing. She did not ask how I was. The conversation was a download of her plans, funded by the now non-existent card in her mind. Well, I have to go, she said finally. The sales associate is holding the outfit. Love you. Goodbye, Chloe, I said. I placed the phone down. There had been no request, no check-in, just an assumption so deep it was bedrock. The dramatic irony of it was a cold, sharp thing in my chest. She was building a castle on a phantom foundation. That afternoon, I went to the upscale grocery store. I pushed my cart through the aisles with a new purpose. I was not shopping for a celebration. I was assembling evidence of a different kind of care. I selected items with precision. A box of high-quality shortbread cookies, the kind that didn't crumble. 2 packages of gourmet almonds, dark chocolate bars with sea salt, a sleeve of electrolyte tablets for hydration. These were practical comforts, things for a long flight. I then went to the home goods section and found 2 inflatable neck pillows covered in soft, gray velvet. They were compact, not the garish patterned ones. I added a pair of black sleep masks. At home, I took a brown paper gift bag from the cupboard. I folded the top over to make it sturdy. I arranged the food items inside. I placed the neck pillows and masks on top. Finally, I went to my dried lavender, the ones I had deadheaded. I took a handful of the buds and sewed them quickly into 2 small muslin sachets with a needle and thread from my sewing kit. I tucked one into each neck pillow. This was the care package. It contained nothing of monetary value beyond the $37 I had spent. It contained time, forethought, attention. It was maternal, but it was not a subsidy. It was a clear line in the sand. I will care for you, but I will not fund your fantasy. I did not attach a card. The gesture itself was the message, one I knew she would not understand until later. The following evening, she called again. This time, her excitement was tinged with the slightest hint of routine obligation. Just confirming we're all set for next Thursday. The car service picks us up at 10. I have the date, I said. Great. Oh, and Mom, don't worry about watering the plants or anything. We hired a concierge service for the condo. They'll handle it. This, too, was a statement. She had hired a service, undoubtedly on a card she assumed would work. She was closing loops, tidying her life with my resources. The efficiency of it was impressive. That's considerate, I said. I know, right? Okay, I'm off to a pre-trip facial. Talk soon. After she hung up, I looked at the care package by the door. It sat there, a quiet, tangible rebuttal to everything she had just said. It represented the care she had not asked for and probably would not value, while she blithely spent on the care she deemed essential. The days continued. I attended my volunteer shift at the community library, sorting donated books. I had coffee with Rose. We did not speak of the card. We talked about her granddaughter's science project and the new bakery that used too much salt. My ordinary life was a placid lake. Beneath the surface, the tectonic plates had shifted. The night before their departure, Chloe sent a final text. A blurry photo of 2 open suitcases on her bed, clothes overflowing. The caption read, "Packing chaos. See you when we're world travelers. Smiling airplane." I looked at the photo. The chaos was staged, a performance of a chic dilemma. I did not reply. I had nothing to add to her narrative. I went to bed at my usual time. I slept without dreams. In the morning, I would perform the final, benign act. I would drive to their condo, hand over the bag of snacks and pillows, wish them a good trip, and leave. I would play my part in the prologue of their disaster with impeccable, polite calm. My role, as I now understood it, was not to scream or argue. It was to simply let the mechanism she had built, the mechanism of assumption and entitlement, run its course until it met the immovable object I had placed in its path. The impact was inevitable. My preparation was complete. All that was left was to deliver the package and wait for the silence to break. I did not go to the airport. I saw them off from their condo driveway, the care package handed over with a brief hug. Chloe took the bag with a distracted smile, already looking toward the waiting car service sedan. "Thanks, Mom, we'll text from the lounge." Marcus loaded their sleek luggage into the trunk. The morning was bright, their mood effervescent. I stood on the sidewalk and waved as the car pulled away, a faint, polite smile on my face. Then I turned and went home. But I can imagine the sequence of events that followed with cold clarity. The narrative is built from a lifetime of observation, from the shards of information that would later come back to me. The sedan would have glided through the morning traffic, smooth and quiet. Chloe in her new linen outfit would have been checking her phone, posting a story of the car's interior, the tag, Paris-bound. Marcus would be reviewing their digital boarding passes, a satisfied expression on his face. The driver would handle the bags at the departure's curb. They would step into the vast, echoing terminal, the scent of coffee and floor polish in the air, the sound of rolling suitcases a constant percussion. Check-in, the business class line was short. They presented their passports. The agent, efficient and polite, would tag their bags all the way through to Charles de Gaulle. "Have a pleasant flight, Mr. and Mrs. Harris." The 2 heavy suitcases would disappear on the conveyor belt, a physical unburdening. They were left with just their carry-ons, stylish and light. Security would be a minor hurdle. a ritual of removal and reassembly. Then the airside world opened up to them. The duty-free mall, a cathedral of consumption. They would have strolled, not with purpose, but with the leisure of those who have arrived early and intend to enjoy every privilege. Chloe would have tested perfumes at the cosmetics counter, spraying scent strips. Marcus might have browsed the electronics, examining noise-canceling headphones he did not need. The transaction was not urgent. The card was for later, for the lounge, for the in-flight purchases. The browsing was a prelude, a visual tasting menu. Their gate would be in the international terminal, a walk through long corridors. They found it, then sought out the exclusive airline lounge access their tickets granted. A discreet door, a swipe of a boarding pass, and they entered a zone of hushed luxury. Plush chairs, wide windows looking out onto the tarmac, a spread of food and drink. This is where the celebration would truly begin. They secured 2 seats by the window. Chloe would have taken photos of the spread, of her champagne flute with the airport in the background. Marcus would have gone to the bar. 2 glasses of the Laurent Perrier, please, he would say, his voice confident. The lounge attendant would nod, open the bottle with a soft pop and pour. They would clink glasses. To us, Chloe would say. To Paris, Marcus would reply. The first sip, crisp and expensive. This was the taste of success of a life going according to plan. They talked about the hotel, the dinners, the museums. The conversation was a rehearsed dream now feeling tangible. They were not just planning a trip, they were inhabiting its first chapter. After an hour in the lounge, they decided to find a proper lunch before boarding. The airport had a bistro with a reputation, a place with white tablecloths and a wine list, an oasis of calm pretending not to be inside a terminal. They were seated at a table for 2. A waiter presented menus. They ordered without looking at prices. A salad for her, a steak for him, a bottle of mineral water. And because they were now in full celebration mode, because this was the final pre-flight extravagance, Marcus would catch the waiter's eye. We'll have a bottle of the Dom Perignon as well, the 2010. A significant choice. Not just champagne, but a specific, prestigious vintage. $150 bottle at least. The waiter would have nodded, impressed or indifferent. Excellent choice, sir. The food would arrive. They ate, the excitement making them hungry. The champagne would be brought in a silver ice bucket, presented, opened with ceremony. 2 fresh flutes were poured. This was the peak. This moment, the clink of glasses over the table, the bubbles catching the sterile airport light, the feeling of absolute, untouchable privilege. They were toasting their own cleverness, their curated life, the generous safety net that allowed for such spontaneity. The meal concluded. The plates were cleared. They sat back, sipping the last of the champagne, watching planes taxi outside. The waiter brought the leather folio containing the bill and placed it discreetly by Marcus's elbow. Marcus reached for his wallet. He would not have hesitated. He extracted the card, the matte gray platinum card, and slid it into the folio without glancing at the total. He caught the waiter's gesture and gave a small, magnanimous wave. Just leave it, please. The waiter would have taken the folio and walked toward the point-of-sale terminal near the kitchen. This walk, perhaps 20 feet, was the last segment of their journey on the track they had built. At the terminal, the waiter would swipe the card, or insert the chip. I imagine the pause, the waiter's slight frown. He would try again. Perhaps a swipe this time. The machine would process, then display a message. He might have called over a manager. The manager would try the card on a different terminal. The same result. A different kind of silence would begin to grow at that terminal. A silence that would travel back across the restaurant floor, following the waiter as he walked, his steps slower now, back to their table. The folio was in his hand. His expression would be carefully neutral, but a tightness around his eyes would betray professional discomfort. He would arrive at their table. Chloe would be smiling, looking out the window. Marcus would be checking his watch for boarding time. The waiter would clear his throat. I'm sorry, sir. There seems to be an issue with the card. It was declined. The word hangs in the air between them now, in my imagination, in the quiet of my sunroom where I sat waiting for the storm I had set in motion. Declined asterisk. The first true obstacle they had faced in years, and it was waiting for them at a white-clothed table, with empty champagne glasses and the bill for their fantasy. Declined. The word, in my imagined reconstruction, would have landed between them like a physical object. A glass paperweight dropped on the white tablecloth. Marcus's face would have frozen in a half-smile. "That's impossible. Try it again." "I have, sir, several times. The terminal indicates the card is inactive." Chloe's laugh would be a short, nervous burst. "There must be a mistake. A hold maybe because of the travel alert. Did you call the bank?" The waiter's posture would stiffen slightly. "The machine's message is specific. The card is not authorized for any transactions." Now the first flicker of real concern. Marcus would take the card back, examine it as if it had changed shape. He would pull out his wallet again. "Use this one," he'd say, handing over a different card, a gold one with his own name. The waiter would take it and walk away again. This is the part where their confidence would begin to crack. The shared glance across the table would no longer be about shared excitement, but shared doubt. Chloe would pick up her phone, perhaps to check for a text from the bank about suspicious activity. There would be none. The waiter would return, faster this time. "I'm sorry, sir. This card is also declined." A cold stillness would settle over their table. The ambient noise of the restaurant, the clink of cutlery, the murmur of other travelers would become distinct, isolating. "Let me see the bill," Marcus would say, his voice tighter. The waiter would present the folio. The total with the Dom Perignon would be a figure that under normal circumstances would be an afterthought. Now it was a looming fact. Marcus would pull out a third card, a corporate one perhaps. "Try this." A third walk to the terminal, a third return. The waiter's professional mask would be wearing thin. "Declined, sir." The situation would now be public. Diners at nearby tables would begin to notice the repeated comings and goings, the hushed, urgent conversations. The manager might have reappeared, standing at a respectful but watchful distance. Chloe's voice would rise, though she'd try to contain it. "This is ridiculous. All our cards. Marcus, what is going on?" "I don't know," he would hiss, his face flushing. "There must be a system error, a fraud alert on all our accounts." But a deeper, more terrifying possibility would be dawning on Chloe. Her eyes would dart to her phone. She would not think of bank errors first. She would think of the source, the common denominator, the foundation. "My mother's card," she would say, the words quiet but sharp. She wouldn't. But the evidence was arranging itself. The card that was to fund the entire trip was the first to fail. Spectacularly and specifically. Inactive. "Call her," Marcus would say in order. Chloe's fingers would be unsteady as she scrolled and tapped my number. She would put the phone to her ear. I know this because I was sitting in my favorite chair by the garden window when the call connected. But in that airport bistro, she would be listening to the ring, her other hand gripping the edge of the table. In my reconstruction, I see the waiter and manager conferring quietly nearby. The bill, unpaid, is a tangible problem. The other diners are pretending not to stare. The bubble of privileged isolation has popped. They are just two people in a public place who cannot pay for a very expensive lunch. When my voice answered, Chloe's composure would have shattered. The panic and entitlement would fuse into a single, explosive force. "Mom," her voice would not be a greeting. It would be an accusation, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Mom, what did you do? The card isn't working. None of our cards are working. We're at the airport, we have a flight to Paris in 2 hours, and we can't pay for our lunch. What is happening?" She would be nearly shouting. Marcus would be looking at her, then at the watching faces around them, his expression shifting from anxiety to acute humiliation. This was not a private crisis. It was a spectacle. Chloe would listen to my response, her face contorted with disbelief. "What do you mean you canceled it? You canceled the card? Why would you do that? How are we supposed to go to Paris?" Her voice would rise further, drawing more attention. The manager would take a step closer. "Mom, you have to fix this. You have to call the bank right now and reinstate it. Tell them it was a mistake. Do you understand? We are at the airport. This is a nightmare." She would be packing now, if the space allowed, one hand pressed to her forehead. The careful linen outfit, the chic travel look, would now look like a costume for a play that had suddenly turned tragic. Marcus would reach for the phone. "Let me talk to her." But Chloe would twist away, consumed by the tidal wave of her own outrage. "No, Mom, listen to me. You are ruining our anniversary. You are ruining everything. After everything we've planned. How could you be so selfish, so thoughtless? You need to fix this. Right now." The words selfish and thoughtless would hang in the air, ironic anchors. In that moment, in her mind, I was the villain. I had disrupted the natural order of things. She would finally pause, breathing heavily, waiting for my capitulation, for my frantic apologies, for the promise to make it right. She was waiting for the familiar script where her distress prompted my immediate corrective action. The silence from my end, as she awaited that script, would feel, I imagine, like the ground giving way. The script was gone. There was only my voice, calm and clear, waiting on the other end of the line to deliver the next line of a new one. The sound of her own shouting would echo back at her in the suddenly quiet restaurant. All eyes were on her. The bill was still unpaid. The flight was still boarding. And her mother, her bank, her safety net, was not rushing to the rescue. That is the moment I see most clearly. The dawning, awful realization that the mechanism has not just stalled. It has been deliberately, quietly dismantled. The sound that came through my phone was not a human voice at first. It was a cascade of noise, Chloe's shouting, distorted by poor connection and raw emotion, the background murmur of a public space, the clatter of dishes. A shard of panic, sharp and demanding. I held the phone slightly away from my ear. I was in my favorite chair, the one by the large window that looks onto my garden. The afternoon light was soft, filtering through the clematis vine on the trellis. My ledger was closed on the side table. A cup of tea, now cold, sat beside it. I listened. The words tumbled out in a chaotic stream. Airport Paris, declined, ruined, selfish, fix it. It was a torrent of accusation, a performance of victimhood meant to trigger an immediate, corrective response. I heard Marcus's voice lower, trying to interject, then receding. I heard the strain in Chloe's throat as her voice climbed higher. I said nothing. I watched a sparrow land on the birdbath, dip its beak, shake its wings. Her monologue began to fragment, running out of steam without the fuel of my reaction. The shouting subsided into heavy, ragged breathing. "Mom, are you there? Did you hear me? You need to call the bank right now." I brought the phone back to my ear. My voice, when I spoke, was calm. It was the quiet of the room amplified. "I heard you, Chloe." Then do something. What is wrong with you? "The card was canceled," I said, stating a simple fact. "I canceled it the afternoon you told me your plans." There was a beat of silence on her end, filled with the airport's hum. The information, already suspected, now confirmed, seemed to short-circuit her outrage momentarily. "Why?" The word was a baffled explosion. "Why would you do that?" "Because you told me. You did not ask me," I said. "You announced you were taking something of mine. You treated my resources as an extension of your own. That is not how this works." "It's a credit card. For a trip. I was going to bring you perfume." Her voice was pleading now, edged with a frustration that bordered on tears. The script was so deeply ingrained, her desire, my compliance, her token of thanks. She could not comprehend the breakdown. "The perfume is irrelevant," I said. "This is not about a trip to Paris, Chloe. This is about the last 10 years. This is about the wedding and the car and the constant loans that were never loans. This is about you seeing me as a function, not as a person." "That's not true. I love you. We're family. Families help each other." "They do," I agreed, my tone level. "But help is requested. It is appreciated. It is reciprocal. What you have been doing is not help. It is appropriation. You have confused my love with a blank check." "So you're punishing us. You're ruining our anniversary to teach us some kind of lesson." The indignation was returning, fueled by humiliation. "I am not punishing you," I said. "I am stopping. There is a difference. I am removing the thing you have come to rely on instead of yourselves. I am forcing an accurate accounting." "An accounting? What are you talking about? Mom, we're at the airport. We have a flight. We can't even pay for our lunch. This is a disaster." I could picture the scene. The watched table, the impatient manager, the packed bags heading to Paris without them. The scale of the disaster in her mind was cosmic. In mine, it was a natural consequence. "Then you will have to solve the problem," I said. "You are two capable, employed adults. You will have to find a way to pay for your lunch. You will have to decide what to do about the flight and the hotel and all the plans you made on the foundation of my money." Our other cards are there must be a hold. Your other cards are likely maxed out," I said, the words dropping into the line like stones. "Because you have lived at the edge of your means, assuming my safety net would catch you. The net is gone, Chloe. You are standing on your own financial ground for the first time. Look at it." The silence from her end was complete now. The shouting had stopped. The breathing had quieted. It was the silence of a terrible, vertiginous understanding. "You did this on purpose," she whispered. The accusation was devoid of heat now. It was a cold realization. "Yes. You knew we'd be here, humiliated, stranded. I knew you would face the natural result of your assumptions. Where you faced it was your choice. You chose an airport bistro with a bottle of champagne." A small, choked sound came through the phone. It might have been a sob or a gasp of pure shock. I heard Marcus's voice again, closer now, saying, "Give me the phone, Chloe. Let me talk to her." But Chloe did not relinquish it. She found her voice again, small and wounded. "How could you be so cruel?" I looked out at my garden, at the tidy rows, the supported vines, the weeded beds. It required constant, deliberate care. For years, I was called generous when I was afraid. I was called supportive when I was compliant. I called it love when it was fear, fear of your disappointment, fear of your distance. That was not love. That was cowardice. What I am doing now feels to you like cruelty. To me, it is the first truly honest thing I have done for you as an adult. It is respect. I am finally treating you like the capable woman you are, not the entitled child you have chosen to remain. The line was so quiet I wondered if she had dropped the phone. "The care package I gave you," I continued, my voice softening just a degree. "It had lavender from my garden in the neck pillows. That was the help I wanted to give. Something thoughtful, something I made. Not a line of credit. You didn't even open it, did you?" No answer. "You have a decision to make now," I said. "You can be angry with me. You can call me every name you wish. That is your right. Or you can pay for your lunch, go home, and look at the life you have built. Truly look at it. The choice is yours. I will be here, living my life. When you are ready to have a conversation that does not involve a request for money, you know where to find me." I waited. I heard only the distant airport announcement, a garbled echo. "Goodbye, Chloe." I ended the call. I placed the phone on the table next to my cold tea. My hand was steady. The sparrow had flown away. The garden was still. The quiet in the room was no longer just an absence of sound. It was a presence. It was the sound of a boundary, solid and finally built. The silence after I ended the call was absolute in my home, but it was a different kind of silence that descended over them. I learned the details later, in fragments, from the things Chloe eventually told me, and from the logical conclusions one can draw. They did not get on the flight to Paris. First, there was the immediate, mortifying problem of the lunch bill. According to the receipt they later showed me in a moment of bitter evidence, the manager was called over. After their third card failed, his professional courtesy evaporated. Marcus had to call his own father, a man he rarely spoke to, and ask for a wire transfer through a mobile payment app to cover the amount. The transaction took 20 minutes. They sat at the table during that time, under the manager's watchful eye, not speaking, the empty champagne bottle a monument to their hubris. Other diners finished their meals and left, glancing at them with pity or curiosity. The polished fantasy had curdled into public shame. Their luggage was already en route to Paris. They had to go to the airline desk, where Chloe, her face streaked with quiet tears, explained they would not be traveling. The agent was unsympathetic. There were fees for retrieving checked bags, a process that would take hours. They were told to wait in a specific area for their luggage to be located and brought back. They sat on hard plastic chairs in a baggage service office, surrounded by lost suitcases and distressed travelers. The care package I had given them sat at Chloe's feet, unopened. It was early evening by the time they retrieved their bags and called a rideshare. The cost was charged to Marcus's phone, which was linked to yet another maxed-out card, prompting another humiliating alert. They used the last of the cash in his wallet. They arrived at their condo after dark. The entry was silent, the air stale. The hired concierge service had not yet come for the evening. Their sleek, expensive space felt hollow. The 2 suitcases, still tagged for Paris, stood in the middle of the living room floor like abandoned sculptures. Marcus did not turn on the main lights. He walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it looking out at the city lights. His back was rigid. "She'll call back," Chloe said, her voice raw from crying and shouting. She dropped onto the sofa, clutching a decorative pillow. "She has to. She can't mean it." "She meant every word," Marcus said, not turning around. His voice was flat, tired. "She was perfectly clear. She's my mother. She's punishing us. When she calms down, she'll fix it." Marcus turned then. In the dim light from the kitchen, his face was all hard lines. "Fix what, Chloe? Reinstate the card so we can go to Paris next week? Is that what you think is going to happen?" "Why not? It was a lesson. A harsh one, okay? She made her point. Now she'll make it right." "Make what asterisk right?" His voice rose slightly, the first crack in his usual passive composure. "Our finances, our other cards are maxed out," she said. Was she wrong? Chloe looked away, hugging the pillow tighter. "We have some debt. Everyone does. It's manageable." "Is it?" He put his glass down with a sharp click. "Let's manage it then. Right now, show me the statements, all of them, the ones you've been hiding." "I haven't been hiding anything." "Then get them, the online banking, now." It was the first time he had ever demanded, the first time he had stepped out of his role as the benign enabler. The shock of it, combined with the day's humiliation, made her compliant. She retrieved her laptop, her movements sluggish. They sat at the dining table, the screen casting a blue glow on their faces. The numbers were a bleak geography. Credit card balances much higher than he had realized. Store cards, a personal line of credit she had taken out to cover a shopping trip 6 months prior. The minimum payments were swallowing a significant portion of her salary. His own finances, while better, were strained by the mortgage on the condo, the car leases, the lifestyle. "You said your mother's card was for the trip," he said, scrolling. "But looking at this, you were using it for more than that, weren't you?" "It was for emergencies," she whispered. "A handbag is not an emergency. A weekend at a spa is not an emergency." He closed the laptop. "We have been living a lie, a very comfortable, pleasant lie funded by your mother's guilt." "It's not a lie. We earn good money." "We spend excellent money," he corrected, his tone icy. "And we have been counting on an endless subsidy to close the gap. That subsidy is gone. It is not coming back. Do you understand that? She is not calling back. She is not fixing this." Chloe began to cry again, but this time it was not the angry tears of a thwarted child. They were the silent, scared tears of an adult facing a precipice. "What are we going to do?" "We are going to pay for our own lives," he said. He stood up and started packing. "We will cancel the concierge service tonight. We will call the hotel in Paris and cancel, eat whatever penalty there is. We will contact every card company and work out a payment plan. We may need to sell the car." "My car," her head snapped up. "Asterisk your asterisk car," he emphasized. "The one your mother helped buy, yes, or mine. One of them goes. We cannot afford both leases." The conversation continued into the night, stripping away pretense layer by layer. It was ugly. He blamed her for her entitlement. She blamed him for his complacency. They both, in silent moments, blamed me for pulling the rug out so completely. But beneath the blame was a cold, new reality. They were alone with the consequences of their choices. At one point, Chloe noticed the care package. She bent and pulled out the neck pillow. The scent of dried lavender wafted out. She held it, then let it fall to the floor as if it had burned her. It was a tangible proof of a care she had overlooked, a care that asked for nothing in return. It made the loss of the other thing, the financial prop, even more stark. They went to bed apart, the space between them in the large bed wider than it had ever been. The condo, their trophy of success, felt like a gilded cage. The silence there was not peaceful. It was the silence of inventory, of calculation, of a future that had suddenly shrunk and hardened into something they would have to build themselves, brick by heavy brick. The pieces of their imagined life were on the floor, and they had no idea how, or if, they could be reassembled. The days after the airport did not bring another call. The silence from Chloe's end was total. It was not a peaceful silence at first. It was a heavy, waiting silence, like the pause after a door has been slammed. I had lived my life attuned to the rhythm of her needs, and the sudden cessation of that rhythm was a palpable void. I did not fill it with worry. I filled it with routine. My mornings began earlier. I would have my coffee in the sunroom, now just for me, and watch the light change on the garden. The weeding was done. The pruning was done. I began dividing some perennials, carefully separating the root balls and transplanting the divisions to new areas. It was work that required patience and a faith in future growth. I found it satisfying. I increased my volunteer hours at the community library to 3 days a week. The work was methodical, sorting donations, repairing spines, updating the catalog. The quiet of the stacks was a balm. I helped a teenager find sources for a history paper. I showed an older man how to use the library's ebook app. These were small, clear exchanges. I gave help. They thanked me. The transaction was complete and unburdened. Rose called me, not about Chloe, but about other things. She invited me to a film at the Art House Cinema. We went, and afterward, over tea, she asked, "How are you sleeping?" "Through the night," I said, without interruption. She nodded, and the guilt. I considered the question. I searched for the old, familiar pang, the one that used to twist in my stomach if a week passed without a call from Chloe or if I said no to a request. I could not locate it. It isn't there. What I feel is a kind of clean exhaustion, like after moving heavy furniture. The room is emptier, but it's my room again. "Good," Rose said. "It was always your room. She was just storing her excess in it." A week passed, then too. I did not reach out. The boundary I had set was not a bargaining tool, it was a wall. To poke at it would have shown doubt. I had no doubt. I saw their life in glimpses, inferred from the digital breadcrumbs I had not entirely blocked. A mutual friend, unaware of the schism, mentioned that Marcus had sold his car. "Downsizing," he said, "focusing on investments." I merely nodded. I saw that Chloe's prolific social media posts, usually a stream of lunches, new purchases, and stylized photos, had stopped entirely. Her last post was the blurry packing photo from the night before the trip. That page was now a frozen monument to the moment before the collapse. I missed her. The feeling would surface at odd times, when I saw a young woman with her hair styled like Chloe's used to be, or when I passed the bakery that made the princess cakes she loved as a child. The missing was a sharp, simple ache, but it was not a regret. It was the acknowledgement of a loss that had already happened, long before the airport. I missed the daughter I had raised, the one I thought was in there. The current version of her was a stranger whose silence I could endure. My own life gained a new texture. I accepted a dinner invitation from a couple in my book club. I finally signed up for the watercolor class at the community center that I had always put off. The first class was a mess of awkward washes and shaky lines, and I laughed at my own attempts with the other students. The sound of my own laughter, unprompted by anxiety or the need to put someone at ease, was a novelty. One afternoon, while volunteering at the community garden, I was assigned to work alongside a young woman named Anya. She was in her late 20s, earnest and quiet. We were staking tomato plants together. She spoke about her student loans, her small apartment, her second job waiting tables. There was no complaint in her voice, only a factual recounting of her efforts to build a life. "It's hard," she said, tying a strip of cloth to a bamboo stake. "But it's mine, you know. Every bill I pay myself, it's like a brick. It's slow." "It is slow," I agreed, handing her another tie. "But the bricks you lay yourself never crumble." She smiled, a shy, grateful thing. "That's a good way to put it." That evening, I thought of Chloe. Was she, for the first time, laying her own bricks? Or was she still staring at the empty space where my subsidy had been, waiting for it to rematerialize? I did not know. The not knowing was a form of detachment I was learning to cultivate. The quiet in my house ceased being an absence and became a presence. It was the sound of my own thoughts, uninterrupted. It was the sound of pages turning, of brushstrokes on paper, of the kettle whistling for my tea alone. I had friends. I had my community. The love in my life was not gone. It had been redistributed away from a single, draining channel and into a network of equal, respectful exchanges. One night, about a month after the airport, I dreamed of Chloe. She was a little girl again, maybe 7, and she was lost in a supermarket. In the dream, I was frantic, searching every aisle. Then I stopped. I realized she knew the way out. She just had to walk to the front. I stood still and waited. I woke up before I saw if she found it. I lay in the dark, the dream's clarity lingering. It felt like a message from some deeper part of my mind. The lesson was over. The consequence had been delivered. The waiting was now hers to end. I rose and made tea. I did not feel anxious. I felt resolved. The radio silence was not a punishment I was inflicting. It was a space I had created. It was up to her to decide what to broadcast into it, if anything. My life, in the meantime, was no longer on hold. It was being lived, simply and on my own terms, one quiet, earned day at a time. 6 weeks to the day after the airport, the weather turned. A steady, soft rain fell from a gray sky, washing the dust from the leaves. I had spent the morning indoors, organizing my sewing supplies, a task I had neglected for years. The dining table was covered in sorted threads, buttons, and patterns. The radio played classical music at low volume. The knock at the front door was not loud, but it was distinct. 3 measured taps, not the insistent ring of the doorbell Chloe always used, not the rushed pounding of a delivery person. I put down the spool of navy thread I was holding. I walked through the living room to the front hall. Through the frosted glass of the side light, I saw a blurred, solitary figure. I opened the door. Chloe stood on the welcome mat. She was alone. She wore a simple navy trench coat, dark jeans, and flat boots. Her hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, no elaborate styling. She carried no purse, only a small, wet umbrella held at her side. She looked thinner. Her face was bare of makeup, and the skin under her eyes had a faint, bruised appearance. She looked, for the first time in her adult life, her actual age. She looked tired. We stood for a moment, separated by the threshold. The rain pattered behind her. "Mom," she said. Her voice was quiet, hoarse. "Chloe." She swallowed. Her eyes met mine, then flickered away, then came back. There was no excitement there, no performative energy. There was only a weary uncertainty. "Can I come in?" she asked. A question, not a statement. "I'd like to talk." I looked at her. I saw the ghost of the little girl, but mostly I saw the woman she had become, humbled, stripped of her certainties. I felt no triumph. I felt a cautious, clinical assessment. "All right," I said. I stepped back from the doorway. She came in, closing her umbrella carefully and leaving it on the tile floor. She shrugged out of her coat. I saw the sweater underneath was a simple cashmere crewneck, but it was an old one from years ago, not a new purchase. "I was organizing sewing supplies," I said, gesturing toward the dining room. "It's a mess." "It's okay," she said. She followed me into the living room but did not sit. She stood in the middle of the room, her hands clasped in front of her, as if she were a guest in a strange place. Her eyes took in the familiar surroundings, the bookshelves, the chair by the garden window, the photograph of her as a child that I had not moved. "Would you like tea?" I asked. "No, thank you." She finally sat on the edge of the sofa. I took my usual chair. The silence stretched. It was not the hostile silence of the past weeks. It was the silence of someone searching for a place to begin. "I sold the car," she said finally, looking at her hands. "The convertible. We got out of the lease. It was complicated. We're down to 1 car now. Marcus takes the train sometimes." I nodded. That must be an adjustment. "It is." She let out a short breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "We've been adjusting a lot." She looked up. "We canceled the trip. Obviously, there were penalties. We're paying them." "I see." Another pause. She seemed to be gathering courage. I opened the care package. On the ride home from the airport, I used the neck pillow. The lavender, it smelled like your garden. I know, I said. She looked at me directly then, her eyes glistening but no tears falling. You were right, about everything, about the ledger, about me seeing you as a function. I never meant to, but that's what I did. I did not offer absolution. I simply listened. Marcus and we've been talking, really talking, about money, about what we actually have, not what we hope to have. It's been hard. We're in counseling. That is a good step, I said. My tone was neutral, acknowledging the fact without praise. I'm sorry, she said. The words were plain, unadorned. They were not followed by a but or an explanation. They hung in the air between us, a simple offering. I considered them. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to just forgive me or to go back to how things were. I know they can't. She looked around the room again, as if seeing its piece for the first time. You seem well. I am, I said. She nodded as if this, too, was a fact she had to absorb. If you're willing, I'd like to try to have a relationship, a real one, without that. She gestured vaguely, meaning the credit card, the loans, the entitled assumptions. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'd like to learn. I studied my daughter. The anger was gone from her, burned away in the humiliation of the airport and the exhausting reality that followed. What remained seemed fragile, but genuine. It was a starting point. That will require new habits, I said, from both of us. I know. It will be slow. I know that too. I stood up. She watched me, her posture tense. I walked to the kitchen. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove. I took 2 cups from the cupboard. When I returned to the living room doorway, she was still sitting, waiting. Would you like tea now? I asked again. A small, tentative relief softened her features. Yes, please. Come into the kitchen, then. You can help. She stood a little unsteady and followed me. I pointed to the canister. The peppermint is in the blue tin. The English breakfast is here. She opened the blue tin, her movements careful. The kettle began to sing. We stood in the kitchen, the rain against the window, performing a simple domestic task together. There were no promises made, no grand declarations. There was only this, a shared space, a quiet action, and the long, uncertain work of building something new from the foundation up, one honest brick at a time.